I created 6 distressed paper star ornaments to hang on your tree. I used tons of different textures and dyes. You guys are going to love it. Hey everyone, it's Joy here and welcome to my channel. I'm starting with the nested stars, the 3 biggest sizes for these fun paper ornaments. And I did get my inspiration off of Pinterest. I can't share who it was because the picture that I found was someone else who took a picture and didn't credit the creator. But I did see this inspiration on Pinterest. So I am starting by getting all of the elements prepped. I have die cut some greenery using Honeybee Stamp's Lovely Layers Winter Greenery. I'm using Distress Oxide sprays in Rustic Wilderness, Lumberjack Plaid, and peeled paint. I also used a little bit of fossilized amber for the poinsettias, but I don't show that on camera because it was just for the centers. So I'm keeping all of my die cuts in my paper, so it was just easy for me to ink blend, and then I can set that aside and pop those out later. So now I have all of those pieces. I am going to do a little bit of spritzing with my distress sprayer. We're going to do lots of distressing on these ornaments. I will say I'm not a star person. I don't put that in my card making, but I absolutely love these tags. They are so much fun. Then I'm using I think this is the smallest die from the Nested Trees die from scrapbook.com. And I have 6 of them. I'm going to ink blend the front using peeled paint. I'm ink blending the back using Rustic Wilderness. And then when I flip them back over to the front, I'm going to ink blend the Rustic Wilderness a little bit on the edges. And then I'm going to use some Distress Spray Stain. I'll be using that in Rustic Wilderness. And I'm going to spritz those on these trees just to give them a little something extra. There's a lot of distressing in this card, or excuse me, in these tags. And so I'm just kind of doing all the things I feel like. I'm using tons of different products, tons of different ways to get us texture. So this video is longer. There is a lot of things to do, but it's totally worth it when you're done in the end. Here are the Lovely Layers poinsettias from Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to do 2 of these. I'm ink blending front and back because I want to bend up the petals and I don't want to see a white underneath. So I'm ink blending that with Distress Oxide in Lumberjack Plaid. And then I'm also going to spritz these with the Distress Spray Stain in Lumberjack Plaid. So really quick, easy blending. I am using the domed foam tools, ink blending tools from scrapbook.com. When I'm wanting to do a lot of this like heavy ink blending, these are the tools to do. I love blender brushes for stenciling and stuff, but I've kind of come back to these foam tools for ink blending because it really does do the job quickly and in a really good coverage. So let's spritz those with that Distress Spray Stain. That's just going to give us, again, a little something extra in the same way that we did it with those little Christmas trees. Like I mentioned, I'm just getting all of my elements together. There's a lot of elements. I did a lot of die cutting ahead of time, all of those kind of things. That same Rustic Wilderness Distress Spray Stain I'm using on that greenery that we ink blended. Then for 3 of our star ornaments, it's going to be an open area, and this is a white cardstock. I'm using mixed media cardstock from scrapbook.com, and I'm ink blending in Rustic Wilderness, peeled paint, and Lumberjack Plaid, so 1 of each color. Again, just trying to get through the order. Again, there's a lot of process here of doing things, but once they come together, they are so pretty, and it is so worth it. You could hang these on your tree. These could be where you add it to your gift packaging. You could make it a tag if you wanted, but I want these. I think these are cute for a tree. So I am using Honeybee Stamp's Snowy Pines 3D embossing folder on one of my backgrounds here. This is that rustic wilderness background. Then I have another 3D embossing folder. This is Simon Hurley's embossing folder, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's something Poinsettias. I will have it listed and linked for you below. I'm going to run that red star through the die cut machine with that. So that's going to give us some fun texture. Then the peeled paint background, we're going to do some stamping. So tone on tone. So in my Misty, I'm going to be using Simon Hurley's Handwritten stamp. And because I ink blended this background with peeled paint, I'm going to stamp it with peeled paint. Stamping it's going to be darker than the ink blending, so it's going to show up, but it's just going to be a nice background. So again, tone on tone. So let me line that up. And then I'm going to ink that with my peeled paint. I thought about it for a second. I was going to do something different, and then I changed my mind. I'm like, no, I'm going to do tone on tone. My original thought was I'm going to do some white embossing, but I will do that on another star. So look at how cute that is. Okay, then we have a smaller star that's going to go on the front of our other 3 designed tags here, or ornaments. And I am prepping that with an anti-static powder tool. I'm going to use Versamark clear embossing ink. I do have my heat tool heated up. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some white embossing powder. And then we're going to have this fun background that has the white against this really pretty paper bag cardstock from Lawn Fawn. So that's what I die cut all of those stars from, obviously except for the white ones. So the other 2 little stars that we have that are going to go on the fronts, we're going to do some embossing with that. So we're going to do some embossing, 3D embossing folders, but look at how pretty that is. So the next one that we're going to add some texture to, I'm using Honeybee Stamp's Burlap 3D embossing folder. This is one of my favorite textures on this project here. And then I'm going to be using Flurry of Snowflakes 3D embossing folder from Spellbinders. That is my other favorite texture for these fun ornaments. So I'm kind of placing it in my 3D embossing folder where I want those snowflakes to be. But those snowflakes on this craft cardstock is so pretty to me. Okay, let's start putting some of our elements together. So remember, these are those nested tree dies. I'm going to fold them in the middle. I'm using some scissors to texture the edges to give it more of that distressed feel. So I'm going to have 2 trees when I'm done. 3 of these trees will be glued together, which is going to give us 2 trees. You could do more of these and really have a full tree here, which I think I'm going to do on a Christmas card. But I'm going to glue those 3 together. And once all the glue is held, then I can really kind of push together the trees, separate the 3 separate trees, and really give it some dimension. I'm using my reverse tweezers to hold that in place while that liquid glue is drying, but now I can kind of manipulate the paper, and I just think that turned out so pretty. I love that. We're going to add more details to this stuff at the end, so definitely hang on for that. Let me just bend this up too. Now we have this fun 3D tree. Like I said, you could add more layers in there, but I kind of liked it with the 3. Let's put together our poinsettias. Again, this is the Honeybee Stamp's Lovely Layers poinsettias. I'm going to glue these together. I also want to distress these a little bit too. I don't want anything feeling brand new on these ornaments. So I'm going to put those in place. There's 4 layers total. There are leaves to this. In the die cut, I did not use those because I'm going to be using the Lovely Layers Winter Greenery for this. Let's adhere our second one together, just kind of getting those pieces lined up. You'll have matching areas where your petals will line up, so it makes it super, super simple. Let's add that little centerpiece. Again, bringing in those scissors. Oh, here's those little the centers to the flowers that I ink blended in the fossilized amber because it has a nice little gold tone to it. But I will say it really didn't matter because I ended up covering them up anyways. But, you know, I kind of don't know till I'm ready to lay things out how I want it to look. So I'm just going to make all the elements how I need to and then kind of go from there. So again, using the scissors, just running that across the edges, roughing it up, distressing it. I didn't go crazy. I am kind of bending some of the petals up, some of the petals down, just giving it a little bit of that distressed look. And I'm going to do that for both of those. Okay, let's start adhering, or no, excuse me, I'm wrong. Let's start adding some texture paste. I am using Cloud Whip from scrapbook.com. You could use any kind of texture paste. This will dry white, which is what I wanted. These are the back pieces of the stars for the ones that has a solid star on top. The other one is going to be a framed star, if that makes sense. So just adding it to the edges. This dries really, really fast, especially because I'm doing such a thin layer. I'm going to do it on that smaller star that's going to be in the front for all three of those. Again, just kind of brushing it along the edges, just giving it some texture, adding some white in here. I like the white against that craft cardstock. I think it's really pretty. Going across the textured from that Burlap 3D embossing folder, I think it looked so pretty. That was one of my favorites. The snowflakes, it kind of caught in some of the edges. I don't think it looked bad. I still like how it turned out, but really, really pretty. Then I also have some hemp cord or jute or something that I'm using to create our hangers for this. So once I'm going to add some foam adhesive. This is 3mm foam adhesive behind these little stars. That's where I'm also going to add that hanger piece. I will scoot this foam adhesive down a little bit because I'm going to add that twine, the hemp cord, whatever it is that you want to use. I'm going to actually add that behind another piece of foam adhesive. So that's going to adhere it down nicely. This is not heavy, so it's not going to pull out, but let me just move that piece down. And then that will adhere. So I'm going to move all those other pieces down, cut this. I'm just folding it in half and then again placing down that foam adhesive. So this totally works. You could also add a little bit of liquid glue and then add your foam adhesive down. You can use the liquid glue to have additional strength to that, but I don't think this is actually going to be a problem. And then that will be sandwiched between that smaller star and the larger star. So let's put these three together. I'm going to center that. So the back one is the largest star in the Nested Stars dies. This is the second. No, I think this might be the third largest in this one. I'm just trimming off the stems. I'm going to add a little bit of greenery behind that tree. I do come in later and add some red little holly berries. Now the sentiments are from Tim Holtz Baseboards Christmas, and it has a ton of these like chipboard Christmas sentiments, which were perfect for a project like this. So I'm actually going to tuck that in between the bottom and top layer, bottom and second layer of that Christmas tree. I will add some foam adhesive to one end, a little bit of liquid glue because I do want this to really hold. So I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue to that foam adhesive, and then I can place that down. What was kind of fun for me in these ornaments is that the sentiment did not have to be straight. It could be however I wanted. It could be kind of wonky. And that for me kind of gave me some freedom, weirdly, because I feel like certain things have to be a certain way. And it just didn't feel like that with this project. And I love it. These are the Snowflakes dies from scrapbook.com. I just die cut those off camera from white cardstock. I didn't do anything to them. I really wanted that bright white, so I kept it the same. Then we have our little leaves from the Winter Greenery from Honeybee Stamps. Foam adhesive. The foam adhesive strips are 2mm. The foam adhesive roll, the bigger pieces, is 3mm. So let's put those pieces in place. Then we have our little red berries here. I'm going to add some glue. I'm using my Pick Pro tool, and I'm going to start with one of the bigger berries, and then I'm going to come in with some smaller ones to add around. And then I want to tuck my sentiment in there. That sentiment says, have a holly jolly Christmas. I think that first one was making spirits bright. Oh, here's that fun snowflake background. And I have those poinsettias on here, or one, excuse me, and some of that greenery. So I'm going to pop this in place. that sentiment says, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Is that the right one? No, that's the wrong one. Sorry, guys. It is, "'Tis the season to be jolly." I wasn't reading it on camera. I was reading on what was in front of me and I was looking at the wrong one. So I did have that tucked under there. I do change that because I didn't love it. It was a little too long sticking off the side. I didn't mind if some of it did, but I'm just going to have it go over that poinsettia flower. So I'm going to add some foam adhesive behind that. And then I can just kind of pop that in place. Okay, let's put our next three together. So when I started with the largest star die, then I took the third smallest one and placed it in the center and die cut out a frame. So we have a star frame. Then I took the second largest star die. That's the one that we ink blended and added texture to. So that way it was a little bit bigger and it could be hidden behind, but still have some room to adhere it down. So I'm taking that 2mm foam adhesive, adding that to the edge, and I'm going to do this for each one of these star frames. And then I can come back and add the back piece to it, if that makes sense. So I'm going to flip this over, center that, press it down. I'm going to do that for all three. Now we have our pieces. Coming in again with that Cloud Whip texture paste, adding that to the edges. I do decide to add it to the inside edges. I don't want it on the colored background, so I am going to be careful when I'm doing that. I do want that to just stay how it is with the texture and the stamping that I did. So again, this is quick. This dries super fast. I just kept working with it and it dried. A little bit of it came off on my work surface, but it just wasn't even a big deal because it's so thin. So it's not like I had to wait a long time for drying parts of this. But you could do this at the beginning. I just felt like it needed to be done at kind of towards the end, so I knew exactly where I wanted it to be. Now I have to glue my string down differently, so I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to use some liquid glue and adhere it to either side of that back piece, that back star, that smaller star. So liquid glue is going to hold that down good. I'm just going to flip it over. I'm adding a decent amount of liquid glue and then pushing that hemp cord down into there. Let's do this last one. And then we can put these three together. So now I want to place all of my greenery, kind of getting my layout. I have my sentiment. I don't want it up there, that's for sure. I'm going to go across the flower like I did with the other one. This one says, "We wish you a Merry Christmas," but I am going to add a little bit of foam adhesive because that green part of that star goes back just a little bit. So I want it to have more surface. And then I'm going to place that down. And I do like where that sentiment goes. So again, a little bit of foam adhesive at the end. I have to scoot that in just a little bit, so that way it'll be inside of that green area. And then I can use my tweezers to place that down. Actually, no, I did not move my adhesive. Sorry. Okay, now we've got some more snowflakes. This is going to be part of our background. We have some more greenery. Let's add some foam adhesive behind this snowflake because again, that's going to be down in that green area. Then I'm going to add a little bit of foam adhesive for that second snowflake because I do want it to have some dimension. But isn't that so pretty? I love that. And then we're going to pop some of this greenery on here. I'm going to do 3 leaves on this. And then my sentiment can just go across. So I'm not going to add any of those red berries to the center, but I am going to bring some of those back here in just a little bit. So I think that works out perfect. A little bit of foam adhesive. And then popping that down. Now let's add some of those berries. I'm going to add those just to parts of the snowflakes. I think it's different. It's fun. A little bit, a piece on that star. I think that turned out really, really cute. Okay, let's get our last one here. And then we're still going to do a little something extra after all of these are put together, because you had to wait till all of them were put together. This is going to have that other cute Christmas tree and some more snowflakes. The sentiment will say Peace on Earth. Again, those sentiments are from Tim Holtz baseboards. And I'm going to tuck that in as well and put those snowflakes on the sides. Lots of liquid glue, because that's definitely going to hold it in place. And in the centers of those two smaller snowflakes, I'm going to add those red berries. I think adding a little extra red on that outside is going to be really cute. And then kind of pinching that tree so that way it stands up more. Let's pop some of those in place. How cute is that? I just think they're so darling. I am going to add some to this one because it's a lot of green with very little red. So I'm going to add some of those berries just to that greenery in the background. And I think that made a huge difference on this background in particular. I'm going to bend up some of those leaves there. I'm going to add one more piece of greenery on this one. I felt like it just needed a little something extra, and I think that was perfect. Now I want to add some more texture paste. I want some snow on the greenery. Now I will say this does turn a little bit green. It does turn a little bit pink because it's mixing with those oxide inks. Did not bother me at all, but when it dries it does that. It still has a little bit of white to it, but I still like how it looked. So that's going to be our last little bit of texture, and then we can take a look at this up close. I'm going to do it on the edges of each layer of the Christmas tree pieces that we created, or that I created, and I love how that looks on there, just that little something extra. And I do run a little bit on the snowflakes wherever it's just going to catch. I was not particular about it, just to give it that extra something. Let's do the same thing on the greenery here, on some of the berries, the same thing on the Christmas tree, again in between those layers, but just kind of on the edge. Almost like you're frosting some cookies. That's kind of what it felt like. But doesn't that just finish it off so nicely? I think that white against all of that fun craft color, and then you have the reds and greens, but that white just brings something extra. It really brightens everything up. I kind of feel like it makes everything come to life, and I love how it turned out. So let's do the same thing on this one here. We've got some greenery on this that we can do that on. I think I end up adding a little bit more to that star itself. I'm going to bring the other one in. I felt like it needed a little something extra. Let's do this one. And then we're almost done here, and we can take a look at these up close and just see all of the texture and how pretty these turned out. Okay. I think this one's so pretty. This has that embossing, the white heat embossing. It has that fun 3D Christmas tree. I like that one. I think that's so pretty. This has that burlap 3D embossing folder. I think that one is one of my favorites for sure, with all that texture. We got that pretty snowflake. Then we have the snowflakes. This has that 3D embossing folder, the Poinsettia one. I think that turned out good with that fun 3D tree. I think this one's my favorite though. This has that snowflake background 3D embossing folder. I think this one turned out so fun. Then we have our green background, our darker green with our poinsettia. That is so pretty. And that had the Snowy Pines embossing folder. And then this has the tone on tone stamping in that background. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.